Arrived in Hollywood from Dallas, Texas in 1979 with a very nice resume of commercial credits and what we used to call industrials. They now call them corporate and educational credits. And with the kind assistance of folks that I had worked with and for in Dallas ad agencies, I secured a big-time commercial agent within a week of hitting town. I was floored. Unbelievable. Big-time agent. And I quickly began booking commercial work. But time does what time does, and I aged out of the young, nerdy character guy niche that had been my bread and butter. I was 29 years old when I hit town, so by the time I was in my early 30s, I could no longer play 22, 23. Well, cut to a decade later, in summer of 1989, and while I still had great commercial representation, I was, as we say in the business, between agents on the theatrical side, theatrical being film and television. I just couldn't seem to catch the right break, and I didn't have the kind of theatrical credits I needed to get a great agent. Then along came a director named David Lynch and a film called Wild at Heart. Before I get to the meat of the story, I want to give you just a sense of the world of casting in Hollywood in 1989, before the digital age. Back then, as now, casting notices weren't something just anyone could access. The breakdowns, as they're called, then and now, were and are for agents and managers only. Actors are not the intended users. Now, keep in mind that at this time, again, we're still analog. There's no Actors Access, there's no casting networks, there's no digital distribution, no internet for actors to look for casting opportunities. Casting among actors, that was all word of mouth. We just passed along what we knew as we knew it. But we actors we know that if we can just get a look at those breakdowns, there just have to be roles that we're right for in there. If we could just get a look at those breakdowns, which were distributed by breakdown services, as they are today. Then, every day, they were distributed by couriers who delivered packets of paper casting notices to all the subscribing agents and managers all over Los Angeles. What a system, huh? Much more efficient today, and that's an absolute fact. But here's the thing. By hook or by crook, entrepreneurs began to get access to those almost sacred documents, and they devised a system whereby actors could get access to the breakdowns. Not legally, though. A black market for casting notices was born, and for a time, it thrived. Every month, I'd pay a fee to a friend of a friend or a friend of a friend of a friend, and I would go to a spot pre-designated and pick up those daily breakdowns. I didn't even know who I was paying. Still don't know. It was like having a secret map to potential roles that actors without an agent, that was me, would otherwise never have a shot at. Keep in mind, I was 10 years into my Hollywood journey. I had been up and down and up and down. I had no theatrical representation at this time. Then one day, sitting at my desk at my day job in a real estate appraisal office going through the breakdowns, I discovered the role of Red in Wild at Heart. Now, red hair was a key to the description of this character, and at that time, my natural hair color was a really vibrant red. That's gone over time, but at the time it was red, and I just knew that I could play this red-headed auto mechanic from Big Tuna, Texas. I was right for the role, and I just had to figure out how to get an audition with no agent. How can I make that happen? Well, I gave it a bit of thought, and this is what I did. I went home, created a letterhead for a completely fictitious management company. I think it was called Southpaw Talent Management. I'm left-handed, you see. Printed it on my laser printer, and I don't know, did it look professional? Probably not, but it was decent, I think, and I guess it did the job. I fashioned a pitch of my client, Tommy G. Kendrick, redheaded native Texan, perfect for the role, and then I delivered that bad boy to Johanna Ray, the casting director of Wild at Heart. Fantastic casting director. Many huge projects, including most everything David Lynch has done and still does, I think. So I dropped off that package and just waited. And I waited. And then I finally got a call from Johanna Ray's office to come in for a meeting with Ms. Ray. Now, I don't remember if I actually read for the role or if we just talked. I know I was in the office for a few minutes. It was more than just in and out. And she was quite nice and very personable and kind. And I left there floating on air, just waiting to see what happened. And then I began to see PR in the trades about Wild at Heart, and I knew it was starting production, the casting of the supporting roles and other stars. And then I saw that it was starting shooting, I think, the next week, and I hadn't heard. So, well, it's a disappointment, quite a disappointment, because I was so right for that, you know? And I'd gone out of the way to get that audition, and it had worked, but then that was it. I'm at home on a Friday afternoon. The phone rings. I'm assuming it's my wife, Jane. I answer the phone. "Hello." "Who is this?" says the lady on the phone. Definitely not my wife, Jane. "This is Tommy," I say. Oh, this is Johanna Ray. I thought I was calling your manager's office." Uh-oh. Well, my mind starts churning and doing the thing that I'm really good at, not lying. Improvising. I tell her that I'm covering the phones while my manager is driving to Palm Springs for the weekend. But he has asked me to cover the phone for him. But he has a car phone. And at that time, cell phones were non-existent for the most part. But car phones, which were the size of a loaf of bread, people had those. So she agrees to have my manager call her. We hang up. I call my friend Joe Graves. And I say, "Joe, great actor, great friend, you're my manager. Call Johanna Ray. Whatever she offers, you take it. Don't bargain. If she offers anything, take it. I want this job." Joe calls me back in a few minutes and fills me in. Here's the situation. David Lynch has offered a friend of his the role of Red. Rats. But the good news is, for me, is the friend does not have red hair and does not want to dye his hair red, and David insists that the character must have red hair. So if he won't dye his hair, Johanna Ray is going to promote me for the role with David Lynch. Well, by the end of that weekend, I got the news. I was going to be working with David Lynch and Nicolas Cage on Wild at Heart, shooting in Palmdale, California, I think in the next day or two. I've forgotten the exact details there. After so many disappointments, this was a big win. Finally, I was going to have a role in a big film that would help me get not only a new film and TV agent, but likely a really good agent. It was that big of a project. Well, shooting was that next week. I went out to Palmdale, met David Lynch, met Nicolas Cage, had a great day of shooting with Nicolas Cage. David Lynch was nothing like I thought he was going to be. He was far cooler by 1,000 times and so nice. Nicolas Cage was just absolutely brilliant to work with. No star trip at all. He was just great, treated me as an absolute peer. And that says a lot about him, I think. So, here's how the story ends. About a year later, Daily Variety published a review of Wild at Heart from the Cannes Film Festival, where it had won the Palme d'Or the night before. They actually published the entire huge cast list alongside the review. I don't think they do that anymore, but it was a huge list, and there was my name as Red. What a thrill to see that. I had made the cut, something I never take for granted. Even to this day, you never know. Some days later, I phoned David Lynch's office to see if I could get some footage for my demo reel. You know, I was feeling my oats again. I was feeling some confidence. The assistant puts me on hold, and while she went to check, she comes back in a minute or so and says, "Tommy, David wants you to know that he's very sorry, but he had to cut your scene from the film." Wow, that was not what I was hoping for. However, David Lynch was incredibly kind, and he made sure I got the footage of that scene so I could use it on a reel or just so I would have it. And I was very pleased with my work, so I was glad that I got to see that. Let me be crystal clear here. I do not recommend deceiving casting directors or participating in illegal activities for sure. what I did back then, accessing those black market breakdowns, creating a fictitious management company, improvising my way into an opportunity. It wasn't of the highest ethical order, to say the least. At that time, I saw no other way to get access to job opportunities as an actor in Hollywood. I had been through cycle after cycle of work and no work, work and no work, work, no work. And with no film and TV representation and no legitimate pathway to see what was happening in the casting world, was I desperate? Yeah, absolutely. So I took the shot. And to tell you the truth, if I were in the same place again, I would do that again. That's my story about Wild at Heart, a story of a guy from Texas trying to survive in the brutal landscape of Hollywood, a story about taking risks and pushing boundaries and doing what I thought I needed to do to keep myself in the acting game, to keep my dreams alive. So what about you? What's the most outlandish, daring, or risky thing you might have ever done to try to book a role in a film or television project? Is there something that you've done? Let me know. What do you think about what I did? Was it too far off base? Let me know in the comments, and I'd like to see what you have to say. It'd be a big help if you would hit the like button on this video so that other people can find the video, and I'd appreciate it. If you're so inclined, subscribe to the channel. In case you don't know, Wild at Heart, even though it was a big disappointment, did not mark the end of my acting pursuits. Just another bump in the road. 1994, my family and I rode the aftershocks of the Northridge earthquake back home to Texas, Austin specifically. And I began working in Austin more than I had been in L.A. at that time. 35 years after Wild at Heart, here I am, still auditioning, still training, and thankfully, still working. I recently returned from Kentucky, working on a film called Carolina Caroline, opposite Kyle Gallner and Samara Weaving. I'm in a film called Mobland, opposite John Travolta and Stephen Dorff. That's currently streaming. Hey, take a look at that. I can use the residuals. And before I went to Kentucky, I did a film here in Texas, in Austin, called The End of Nowhere, a fantastic film that I have a terrific part in. I can't wait to see how that turns out. It's still in post. By the way, Gary Marsh, the owner of the Breakdown Services, he ended up suing some of those entrepreneurs in Hollywood over the black market distribution I spoke about earlier, and put that little chapter of Hollywood history to bed. And he was right to do so. Well, let me know what you think about this video. Thank you so much for watching. This is Tommy G. Kendrick. I hope that you have enjoyed this little story of mine navigating the jungle of the film business. So, as I said, please like the video so more people can see it. If you want to see the scene from Wild at Heart, go to my YouTube channel. It's the preview video on that channel. It's right there for you to see, and I hope you'll take a look at it. It's an interesting bit of film history, if nothing else. Until next time, this is Tommy G. Kendrick. I hope to see you in the movies. God bless you, and so long.